And he's like he's the front line man.
Yeah,
and he leaves and he has to go. He could have sent somebody to go do that.
I don't know. That's just different.
It's different.
I ain't never heard of nobody with little skis in the water
while bullets flying. What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets React, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we are back with another American reaction.
Talented, man.
We're super excited about this video, guys. Yes. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down, hit the red subscribe button, because we're on the road to 50K. And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Lauri Torni.
There he is.
Soldier of 3 armies.
1965.
It was October 18th, 1965. The outdated South Vietnam Air Force H-34 helicopter hugged tightly to the mountainous terrain of the Phuoc Son district of Vietnam. As the French and Americans had found, this reliable but old workhorse was not well suited for frontline combat duty due to its slow speed and large silhouette.
Woo, child, slow.
Maybe most significantly of all, its magnesium skin was prone to very intense and deadly fires if hit. Despite their best efforts, rescue teams could not locate the downed helicopter and its crew, or the Special Forces soldiers on board. It was not until over 30 years later that the crash site of the helicopter was found. It was concluded that the helicopter had crashed into the side of a mountain while flying nap of the earth. Among the remains retrieved at the site was that of an American officer who was the team leader of the mission. He was Captain Lauri Thorne, a U.S. military advisor who had also been in World War II, a commander in the German Waffen-SS, and a Finnish Army first lieutenant. He was a highly decorated soldier, and his awards included the German Iron Cross, 2nd class, an American Legion of Merit Medal, and the highest of Finnish awards, the Mannerheim Cross.
Hold up.
Who was this man?
Okay, so did they say he was in the German military too?
I just heard that he was in 3 different types of militaries.
I didn't know that was possible.
Was he in the German?
I heard something about it. Okay, who was this man?
Well, he wasn't originally an American.
Okay.
Nor was his name Lauri Thorne. In fact, his real name was Lauri Torni, and he was born in Viipuri, Finland, on May 28, 1919.
He been
Just
around.
2 years before his birth, the Russian Empire had collapsed, allowing Finland to emerge as a new independent nation. Lauri's hometown found itself on the very border with the Soviet Union, and over the next 2 decades, the Soviet Union became more and more interested in annexing Finland. In 1938, Lauri joined the Finnish 4th Independent Jaeger Infantry Battalion at the age of 19. This wasn't an ordinary unit. It was a Sissi unit who were experts at sabotage and guerrilla warfare, as well as long-range reconnaissance. They were often considered an elite unit, and their job was to penetrate deep behind enemy lines, often gathering intelligence, operating from concealed positions. Sometimes they would carry out roadside ambushes, even being used to hunt down and destroy enemy special forces. He would soon need these skills, as just a year later in 1939, the Soviet Union carried out an unprovoked attack on Finland called the Winter War. Fighting in the Finnish army. Lauri's battalion was based at Kiviniemi when the war started, tasked with protecting the strategically important Leningrad-Khiytola railroad line. Once it was realized that the Red Army was pouring over the Finnish-Soviet border, Lauri's battalion redeployed and moved forward to defend the massive lake at Ladoga. The lake was the largest in Europe and had been shared by the Finnish and the Soviet Union since 1918, and had always been an area of high tension between the 2 nations. The Red Army attacked the area with overwhelming numbers, but they were ill-equipped, lacking adequate winter equipment. Their tanks were also still painted olive green, and their infantry were still wearing brown coats as their camouflage winter clothing.
Okay, yeah, it's not working out. It's not gonna work out.
Lauri's battalion pushed back and surrounded a large number of Red Army troops at Lemetti on the northern part of the lake. Both Lauri's battalion and the winter weather in the form of frostbite inflicted huge casualties on the Red Army divisions encircled there. Lauri took command of the defense of Sugarloaf Hill, a hill that had to be held against the enemy forces in order to maintain Finnish reinforcements. The Finnish headquarters couldn't contact the defenders, so Lauri, using his skis, stealthily moved past the Soviet position, re-establishing communications.
Wait a minute.
That's different.
Very different. In a war?
In the middle of the war, just hop in your vehicle and just go.
Yeah.
That's basically what he did. He got in his car, he drove, and I think he was going to go give some information out. I mean, but on skis though, come on.
I want to know, like, how?
And he's like he's the front line man.
Yeah,
and he leaves and he has to go. He could have sent somebody to go do that.
I don't know. That's just different.
It's different.
I ain't never heard of nobody on little skis in the war.
While bullets flying. Can't dodge.
I mean, I guess he was
Lauri then
fast.
took command of a group of demoralized Swedish-speaking Finns, defending a key position, conveying orders through gestures, shouting, and punches, because he didn't speak Swedish. Lauri's courageous performance during this engagement came to the attention of his commanding officers, and he was promoted to second lieutenant. But it was ultimately to no avail, for it was a short and bloody war, lasting just over 100 days. In the end, Finland was forced to concede 11% of its territory. It was a hollow victory for the Soviet Union. They were thrown out of the League of Nations. Their casualties had been truly staggering, and many, including Adolf Hitler, now viewed the Soviet armed forces as a weak and ineffective force. In June 1941, Lauri went to train with the Waffen-SS in Austria for 7 weeks to gain further specialist skills, as by now Nazi Germany was a strong ally of Finland. During training, he wore a Waffen-SS uniform and was given the rank of Untersturmführer, or Junior Storm Leader. Ignorant of the political implications, his swearing of the oath of loyalty even after death would later haunt him in the years to come. Much to Lauri's distress, his hometown was now on the Soviet side of the border, as was the whole Lake Ladoga region he had fought so hard to protect. Even his barracks at Kiviniemi were all now in Soviet hands. On June 22nd, 1941, the Germans...
Okay, now we're in 1941. When he started, he was 19. So I wonder what age did he... Because they're not
I think he said a year later.
So he's still really young.
Yeah.
Wow. Dang, that's a lot on that's a lot on one person, like,
yeah,
at that age level.
But imagine, being a part of an elite group and losing, and now you have to be in their army. Like, I would love to know, like, how do you switch your thinking? Fighting the enemy and then fighting for the enemy. Ooh. Then it was different times.
Operation Barbarossa, the surprise attack on the Soviet Union. 3 days later, the Finnish attacked too, in what became known as the Continuation War. Lauri was back in Finland, put in charge of an armored unit consisting of captured Soviet tanks and armored cars. Finland would not take part in Germany's road to
wasn't that the Nazi symbol?
Advancing as far as its previous territories lost.
So he was on their side?
Yeah.
On March 23rd, 1942, Lauri was skiing behind enemy lines when he skied over a friendly shrapnel mine while trying to capture enemy prisoners. He was hospitalized but eventually recovered, and instead of going on home leave, he went AWOL, back to the front. By this time, the conflict had fallen into static trench-style warfare, and Lauri's unit was tasked with counter-guerrilla and counter-reconnaissance against Soviet special units that were behind enemy lines. Later, this would move into aggressive actions as they infiltrated behind Soviet lines themselves, taking on Red Army headquarters and communication sites. Lauri impressed his superiors, and in January 1943, he was given the chance by his senior officers to take command of a deep strike infantry unit that later became known as Detachment Torni. With the promise of better rations and more active combat during what had become trench warfare, he received countless keen volunteers. With a strict criteria for aggressiveness, physical stamina, and good marksmanship, he rejected those that were unfit and picked the best men. They would take part in sabotage, capturing prisoners, and intelligence gathering behind Soviet lines. In one mission, Lauri's unit used rowing boats to get into place. They ambushed a Soviet truck and obtained a bag of intel. Then when a second truck came...
Okay. They use rowing boats. He is thinking out of the box. He done got some skis.
What do you do with the rowing boats? That's how they used it on the snow?
I guess. I mean, I saw a truck go past, so I'm guessing it was maybe like a package delivery. I don't know.
But
But
it's different.
Very different. Out of the box thinking.
Out of nowhere, moved into close combat using puukko knives and axes. More Red Army troops reinforced the position, and Lauri's raiders escaped into the forest, stealthily sneaking past Soviet patrols, eventually making it back to the boats. Lauri had made sure that every man knew the enemy intel, in case only one of them made it out alive. The unit would succeed in several hit-and-run skirmishes, operating from a base camp that was deep in Soviet territory. They also learned to use the enemy weapons, which created confusion during engagements and made ammo plentiful as they were operating deep in Red Army territory. Lauri and his men soon gained a formidable reputation for bravery and mayhem, to the extent that the Soviets put a bounty of 3 million Finnish marks on his head, as they feared him so much.
He gotta go.
By June 1944, the war was all but lost for the Finnish. Despite victory after victory against the Soviet Union, they were simply too outnumbered. For his outstanding bravery and leadership during the battle, Lauri was awarded the Mannerheim Cross on July 9, 1944. In September 1944, the Finnish brokered the best deal it could with the Soviet Union, and in effect, the war ended. Most of the Finnish army was demobilizing, including Lauri, who was by now a captain. So by November 1944, Lauri found himself a civilian, unemployed, and his country forced into a humiliating armistice. Once again, they had to concede territory and pay the Soviet Union reparation. As well as this, key members of the Finnish war were put on trial. Fighting in the German army. Lauri joined the Finnish resistance, who formed in the event that the Soviets tried to completely occupy Finland.
So he went back to the army.
Yes.
After the first wars was all over, he went back to this one. I mean, my man was homeless.
Yeah, still trying to defend Finland.
That's a crazy mindset to have, though, because not in a bad way, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to go back to what worked, so you don't have to live on the streets no more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So he back in the war. I wondered, like,
so many veterans. That's their story.
That is. Yeah, I think they all deserve a check, something.
For life.
He went to Germany for training in early 1945 with the intention of returning to train the resistance, but ended up joining the German army. He had secretly boarded a U-boat and had taken the alias of Lauri Laine to hide the fact he was involving himself with the Germans. During his training, the German front in the east collapsed, and the Red Army were on the borders of Germany. With no ships left, Lauri couldn't return to Finland, so he figured he could fight the Soviets by joining a ragtag band of Germans, and was given the rank of a captain. Lauri used the same tactics that he had used so successfully against the Soviets in Finland. He was also joined by a fellow Finn, an officer named Lauri Torni. Soon he had gained a reputation for bravery, and his men loyally followed him, even though his grasp of the German language was poor. By March 1945, the German army was defeated. Lauri and his men were fighting for their lives and decided to head west while they still could. This was to avoid the terrible fate of falling into the hands of the Red Army. After VE Day, Lauri and his men found themselves behind German lines.
I noticed something about this guy named Larry, man. He knows how to get away just in time. The boat, the skis, and now he's doing it again, where he ducked around the bushes because, he said, we ain't gonna win this one.
Leave before
we gotta go.
Have to
stay back and get caught. Okay.
Again, Lauri performed a remarkable feat. He led his unit into Western Germany, and he surrendered with his men to the British at Lubeck.
Okay.
By doing so, the Finn had saved himself and the men of his unit from years of captivity in Siberia. Lauri ended up being put in a prisoner of war camp in Lubeck, Germany. He feared that he would be turned over to the Soviets because of his role in the continuation war, or they would discover his involvement in the Waffen-SS. A few months later, in June 1945, he escaped the camp with Lauri Torni and made his way back to Finland. He was arrested, this time by the Finnish state police, but shortly escaped from them too. Lauri was then arrested again in June 1946.
Something I noticed about him.
Treason for joining the German army when Finland had signed a peace treaty with the Soviets. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. During his time in prison, he had made several escape attempts, which all ended in failure. His last one used a grappling hook made from bed sheets and scrap from the metal shop. He was finally pardoned by the Finnish president in December 1948 and released. Unhappy and disillusioned, Lauri went to Sweden in 1949 under the false name of Elino Morsky. He ended up in Venezuela and in 1950 found work on a Swedish cargo ship, the MS Skagen. A few months later, when it was off the coast of Alabama, he jumped ship and swam ashore. He was reduced to doing carpentry and cleaning jobs, and in 1953, he was granted a residence visa. Fighting in the U.S. Army.
Golly.
That's all he knows.
In 1954, at the age of 35, he joined the U.S. Army, adopting the name Lauri Thorne. Even though he was a recruit, his experience stood out vastly compared to the other men. His natural leadership abilities gained him rapid promotion, and he was made a first lieutenant in 1957 and then a captain in 1960. He had been stationed in West Germany from 1958 to 1962. During this time, he got in trouble when he got into a bar fight. A fellow Finnish officer pulled some strings, and he got Lauri transferred to the 10th Special Forces Group. He was able to use his experience to teach skiing, survival, mountaineering, and guerrilla tactics, and learned new skills himself in airborne school. In January 1962, Lauri was sent to the Zagros Mountains of Iran in command of his team, where he successfully completed his mission to destroy the top-secret material on a crashed U.S. plane. Then, in 1963, he was sent to South Vietnam to assist in the formation of local CIDG units. In one particular vicious firefight at Dien Bien, near the Cambodian border, he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star for bravery. The Viet Cong attacked his base in force and breached the outer perimeter, almost overrunning the area. If it wasn't for his determination, the base would have been lost. It is said that in Robin Moore's book, The Green Berets, Captain Steve Corney is based on Lauri Thorne. When he returned to the United States instead...
This is people that we need in our military. Like, not just our military, but militaries all around. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds crazy, but seriously, like, people who this is their life. This is what they want to do with their life. Not just people who, you know, they want to do this until I figure out what I want to be in life. Yeah. You know,
going into the military is your life move. Mm-hmm. That should be your full agenda whenever you make that assignment. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Not
that adjustment.
Not just going to figure out what I want to do.
So you can dip later. I don't think it works like that. It never did. Mm-hmm. It never did. Yeah. Right. I hear where you're coming from with it. It makes sense.
Instead of retiring to a desk job, Lauri volunteered for a second tour of duty. During his second tour of duty on October 18, 1965, Lauri was put in command of a top-secret Special Forces unit called MACV-SOG, trying to locate Viet Cong turnaround points along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, when his helicopter crashed in the mountains and he was killed. His remains went undiscovered for over 30 years.
Nice, he's tough like
Lauri
that.
Earned the Distinguished Flying Cross and was promoted to Major posthumously. Mm-hmm. His name is honored on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., and in 2003, his remains were brought back to America. Aww. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia.
Wow.
He was dedicated.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm guessing that's it. Yo.
He went through a lot, bro. Like, that's a man, like, you probably look at him and say, you know the phrase, you don't look like where you come from, but the story, all in all, you have no idea what he probably had to go through.
Yeah. You know, we're big on, like, life goals and, you know, living out our purpose. I feel like his purpose was that. Mm-hmm. We didn't hear anything about him having time to go home, having a family, you know, having a career outside of the military. His career was the military. He, instead of going home to get a desk job, he decided to go for a second tour, and he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, I think that death, though, like, that's crazy. Like, after doing everything that you have done, after 30 years, they couldn't find your body.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You went on a secret mission, and no one knew the trail or the route of the mission.
Well, it was secret. It was secret. So
that's how they go. You go on a secret mission and no one knows about the mission, not even the person that's seen you on the mission.
Well, the images, it just shows that, like, it was a tight spot in the middle of a mountain. So maybe that's why.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So guys, we hope you all enjoyed this video with us. Yeah. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you'd like to support the channel that way. And our mailing address is in the description box
down below.
We'll see you soon.
Peace.